All right, gather round. I want to tell you about something that has been stuck in my head for years. The oldest recorded joke in human history is a dirty joke. Not a riddle, not a proverb. A fart joke, scratched into wet clay 4,000 years ago. And honestly, that might be the most human thing I have ever heard. Around 1900 BC, in ancient Sumer, what is now southern Iraq, someone pressed a reed stylus into a clay tablet and wrote this. Something which has never occurred since time immemorial. A young woman did not fart in her husband's lap. That is it. That is the joke. Humanity invented writing, one of the greatest achievements of our species, and one of the first things we did with it was write a fart joke. I find that incredibly reassuring. These were the same people who built Ziggurats, invented mathematics, created the first legal codes. They mapped the stars and developed irrigation systems. And then they sat down and carved jokes about bodily functions into clay. Because even geniuses need to laugh. Now let's jump forward a few centuries to Egypt. Around 1150 BC, someone created what we now call the Turin Erotic Papyrus. And I am going to be honest with you, this thing is basically an ancient Egyptian adult comic book. Detailed illustrations of various positions, accompanied by text that would make a modern editor blush. When 19th century archaeologists found this papyrus in a tomb, they were so scandalized they hid it away for decades. The British Museum kept similar artifacts in a locked cabinet they called the Secretum. The same civilization that built the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx also produced material that had to be locked away from polite Victorian society. There is a beautiful irony in that. Let's talk about Greece. In the 4th century AD, someone compiled a book called the Philogelos, which translates to the laughter lover. It is the oldest surviving joke book in the world, containing about 265 jokes. And what kills me is how modern they sound. Here is one. A man was learning to swim. He was so afraid of drowning that he refused to get into the water until he had perfected his technique. Here is another. A patient goes to a doctor and says, "Doctor, when I wake up I feel dizzy for half an hour." The doctor says, "Well, wake up half an hour later." And one more. An absent-minded professor was on a ship during a storm. When the passengers panicked, he said, "Don't worry, I have written my will." These are 1700-year-old jokes, and they still land. The Romans took things even further. If you visit the ruins of Pompeii, you will find graffiti covering the walls. Love declarations, political insults, bathroom humor, and explicit content that would get you banned from most social media platforms today. 2,000 years ago, Romans were essentially posting on ancient walls the same way we post online. Some things never change. Medieval Europe was supposed to be an era of piety and devotion. And yet, in the margins of beautifully illuminated manuscripts, monks drew the strangest things. Rabbits fighting knights, monkeys playing instruments, figures with trumpets emerging from, let's say, unexpected places. It turns out that even men devoted to God needed an outlet for their sense of humor. The East had its own traditions too. China produced joke collections like the Xiaolin Guangji during the Ming Dynasty, full of witty satire about corrupt officials and human foolishness. Japan had its shunga tradition, woodblock prints from the Edo period that treated intimacy with a frankness and humor that surprised Western scholars when they first encountered them. Even the great Hokusai created such works. Humor about the human body has no borders. And then there is Shakespeare. The greatest writer in the English language filled his plays with jokes that would make your high school teacher uncomfortable. The word nothing in Elizabethan English was slang for female anatomy. So Much Ado About Nothing carries a meaning that most literature classes conveniently skip. In Hamlet, the prince tells Ophelia he wants to lie in her lap, then asks, "Do you think I meant country matters?" A pun so thinly disguised it barely qualifies as wordplay. In Romeo and Juliet, Mercutio makes joke after joke about physical intimacy. Even The Merry Wives of Windsor is packed with double meanings. The bard could not resist. So what does all of this tell us? From Sumerian clay tablets to Shakespearean stages, across every civilization and every century, humans have been laughing at the same things. Empires rose and fell. Languages were born and died. Technology transformed the world beyond recognition. But the dirty joke survived all of it. Maybe that is because humor, especially the kind that makes us blush, is one of the most honest things we do. It says, I know I am not perfect. I know you are not perfect. And that is funny. 4,000 years ago, someone scratched a fart joke into clay and someone else laughed. That thread connects us to them in a way that monuments never could. We are still the same. We have always been the same. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. It really helps this channel grow.